Hey, family, this is Doug Reed of the Let's Go Show. I'm excited about tonight. I have a very special guest, Zachary Simon, and we just going to get right into it. Zachary,
Yes,
how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I feel really good to be in this space. This is a much needed dialogue that needs to happen among Black men and about people who just need to talk about mental health.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so currently I'm a second year grad student studying clinical psychology. I live in Berkeley, California, where I go to grad school. I am passionate in working with children and have focused my dissertation on Black fatherhood. And yeah, I'm happy to reach out to you. I saw you on LinkedIn, and this is right up my alley in terms of my dissertation and my personal endeavor. And yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, so okay, so tell me about young Zachary. Where were you born, and just you as a child?
Yeah, so I was born in Queens, New York, and my brother, my younger brother, was born in Staten Island. Both sides of my family are from New York, and we moved to California when I was about 3. And uh, I grew up, you know, a lot in California, living low income. My parents, just did not have, the means to afford rent, afford food every month, and so I struggled a lot growing up.
Wow, I mean,
Thankfully, go ahead, sorry.
no, I was going to say, what were some of the challenges that you were encountering besides just the financial conditions?
Yeah, um, yeah, being picked on at school, um, not having lunch to go to school some days, not having enough clothes some days, dealing with, my parents who would argue before going to school. And um, yeah, it was really tough,
Yeah,
really
so
tough.
that had to be a lot, and I know you
Yeah.
mentioned some stuff around working with kids, and just I mean, give me a little insight as far as I mean. Now things have changed. We've been enlightened
Yeah.
about like bullying. You
Yeah.
know, I think we came a long way. I mean, how do you feel about that now, as opposed to the early years?
Yeah. Thankfully, I'm glad that we're having more dialogue about bullying, about how it affects, particularly men, particularly boys, how that affects how we view ourselves, how we get pressured into certain behaviors, certain actions, certain thoughts about ourselves. Um, and so going back to me, I was bullied a lot, and it really affects my self-esteem. Um, you know, a, it affects my ability to talk to girls, my ability to do well in sports. Uh, so many areas of my life were affected by bullying and affected by the troubles at home. And yes, I'm thankful that we're having more and more dialogue.
Yeah, and I think about it even from personally
Yeah,
for myself as far as bullying, because actually bullying can happen within your own family.
yeah,
Uh, and I remember even personally, my brother, we didn't call it bullying back then. You know, it was just your older brother just soccer punching you for whatever reason, and
right,
it turned into me beating up my little nephews or whatever. But that was a form of
right.
bullying. We didn't, the word wasn't extended to that because we just thought about bullying as far as being in school, but even within your family. So I'm like you. I'm glad that we're talking about it more
Right.
in reference to what's going on to society today.
Yeah.
But you were able to get through those challenges, in your early years, and I know imagine high school. Now, did you play sports?
I did. Man, and high school was also pretty tough. I was actually homeless junior year of high school. And while I was homeless, I actually played basketball. I was on the basketball team, and Midway through the season, I was kind of keeping my homelessness low key. And so, my coach found out, I was homeless and, decided to really help me out. And, um, eventually the whole school knew and eventually I started getting the help that I need. But even still, I was bullied. Bullied for not having, the Jordans and bullied for not having, all the things that, the rest of my peers had. And, it was hard.
Wow. And I can only imagine, 16, 17 year olds. I'm not quite sure how old you were, but being
Yeah.
able to transition with that, put all that weight on your shoulders, um, and thank God for the extended family. And one thing
Yeah.
I know, even as far as coaching, I've coached youth basketball, I've coached junior college basketball, but a coach is something real special in our communities.
Yeah.
From the guy that helps from the little league all the way up to the pro levels, because they are our mentors. They do have a genuine
Right.
concern of who you are, which led to you get through your high school years, and then now is to transition to college. How did that decision come about to make that
Oof.
transition to college?
Man, I love this question. And maybe I should go back a little bit. So my parents are divorced. And so I bounced between my mom and my dad. And, which made transitioning to school very different each year, because I went to a new school like every year. So when it came towards college, I mean, affording college was the biggest challenge. After high school, I got accepted to a school called Notre Dame de Namur, which is in Belmont, California. And, I toured the place, did the orientation, and, it turned out I just could not afford it. And, it broke my heart to realize that I just can't go to that school. And so I had to attend a community college for a few years. And, when I was there, I really wanted to go to a 4-year college. And, in the moment, I felt like, man, this sucks.
Wow.
I'm having to settle for a community college. But it was at community college that, I was able to find myself. I met so many great people at community college and was able to transfer from community college to a 4-year university at University of Santa Barbara.
Wow. And what
Yeah.
was that driving force though? I mean, what was the? I mean, this is the Let's Go show.
Yeah.
So what was the driving force that one? Okay, even being let down, not being able to go to the school of your choice, settling in on community college,
Yeah.
uh, and of course I know situations were still arising, but
Yeah.
there was always that driving force. Like, one, I'm gonna go to college. I'm going to succeed. I'm going to
Yeah.
graduate. What was that driving force for you?
I love it. Man, the driving force for me was wanting to get out. I was so tired of my hometown, seeing the same dudes doing the same thing. Um, and so when I was in community college, I thought about all the colleges I could go to. And, you know, Santa Barbara was a lifestyle that I had no idea. I don't know if you've ever been to Santa Barbara. I don't know if you've ever heard of Santa Barbara, but
No, sir.
y- it's a college on a beach. Beautiful people, beautiful weather. The college literally is across the street from the beach. And it was an environment that if I wished I could be there. It was a totally different shift from community college. And that kept me hungry. That kept me, pursuing what classes do I need to take in community college? Who do I need to talk to? How do I put things in order so that I can get there? And, when I was in community college, I heard of this program called the TAG program. which is the transfer agreement program where I could transfer to any UC, so long as I do certain courses, and I got it done.
Wow. And what was, and I'll say, because now we're selling in a college, you had that driving force. Now we got to decide on a major.
Yeah.
What is that major going to be for
Oh
Zachary?
man, I love this question too, and I gotta back up. So in high school, man, I had a good homie named Floyd, who we breakdanced. We used to breakdance together and I had a whole crew in high school. But Floyd was my best friend in high school. And so when he went off to community college and I went off to the same community college, we used to continue to breakdance. Um, we used to continue um, to be in several classes together. And, I was sort of new to community college, not knowing what class to take, majors and stuff. So I followed my friend Floyd, and luckily he was taking courses in psychology. And so when we would go off to breakdance, we would talk about what happened in class and all the cool stuff, in psychology. And so he became sort of like my mentor, someone who would inspire me to pursue, you know, how great and how interesting, psychology is. And so when I went off to UC Santa Barbara, I pursued the field of psychology, and met other like-minded folks in the field.
Well, I remember my days in college. Just think about it. Psychology was one of my favorite classes. Unfortunately, I didn't graduate college. I
Hmm.
chose to join the military because of financial situations. I mean, as you spoke about
Yeah,
it before, I was one, coming from a home where even as far as college, that nobody went to college,
yeah,
and I was giving it my shot, but with impatience, immaturity, had a son on the way. I was like, well, I got to make money, and I chose to go to the military. But
wow,
I mean, you made a real conscious decision about psychology based on just your friendship,
yeah,
your role model that play. And psychology is about how we think. It's about how we
yeah,
deal with others. And uh, only thing I remember, as a young black African American male with
yeah,
genes, hormones kicking up, was only thing I can remember was Sigmund Freud. They said, I was like,
right.
oh, that's why I think the way I do. You know what I mean? But of course, there's so many other things that's involved. So you got college. Any highlights in college that you want to point out?
Wow, so many. Um, you know, Even when I was at UC Santa Barbara, I still struggled financially. I still struggled to pay tuition every month. And even with the payment plan, I still struggled. And so one of the things I had to do was I had to work in college. I worked on campus at the food bank. And that was a eye-opening experience where I got to see the need of students. I got to be more personal on, what do students need? At the food bank, we not only had, non-perishable foods, we also had toiletries, we also had fresh produce. And I came to find out that there were many students struggling like myself.
Wow.
UC Santa Barbara is an expensive college.
And I gotta think, working in that food bank, um, and being homeless at one point.
Yeah,
So that was, I know that drove home
yeah,
as well, and wanting to help, being in a position, and we talk about empathy,
yeah,
being able to understand people where they were at, being maybe ridiculed because they didn't have,
yeah,
um, and then being able to be there for somebody. Now
Yeah.
we talk about the psychological part and the emotional trauma that they probably were going through, as well as yourself. So being in that type of position,
Hmm.
I know just gave you that feeling of wanting to be the servant,
Hmm.
not only for that particular moment in the food bank, but now we're talking about moving forward in what you're doing today,
Yeah.
and explain that transition from graduating college to what you're currently doing right now.
Yeah. You know, when I was in college, I think, especially at the food bank, seeing the need, among the community, and being close with marginalized groups who just don't have the resources, who are unaware of the resources out there. There are many students who just didn't realize that the food bank existed on campus. And so that got me thinking about, what are resources out in the community that many folks just don't know, especially as we talk about mental health. What are the clinics, what are the groups out there, the resources that could benefit, us. And so that got me thinking about working in the field of psychology and being in spaces where there is a need. And so after I graduated, I worked with adults with developmental issues. Then I worked in the field of ABA, which is applied behavioral analysis, working with kids who had autism. Um, and all along the way, enjoying the process of working in the field, seeing the need, I've realized I've wanted to make a greater impact in the field of clinical psychology, in particular, working with Black folks,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to work in Black neighborhoods, wanting to work with Black families. And so that, encouraged me, that inspired me to pursue a graduate degree.
Wow. And so now you work, like you said, dealing in the marginalized communities. What were some of the disparities that you encountered being in that environment? Having the opportunity to see how things should, even in this situation, everything should still be on a level playing field. Like things are
Right.
supposed to be equal. But what
Yeah.
were some of the disparities that you encountered?
Yeah. Yeah. I've witnessed many folks, including myself, just not being aware of the resources out there. What are the clinics that are nearby that we could take advantage of? What are the social groups? What are the resources out there that, we could take advantage of, to benefit our mental health? These types of things, made me inspired, to be a leader, to be a clinical psychologist one day, uh, reaching out to these folks.
And I have to only imagine not only the disparities, seeing the marginalized groups, being part of that
Yeah.
marginalized group, and then of course now we look at mental health within the last couple of years, how everybody's got the recognition, and it's getting to a
Yeah.
platform, but this mental health has been around for a long time.
It has.
And I can only imagine, even as a student going through that and then wanting to study in psychology, it's like, well, why you want to study somebody that's crazy? I can only imagine those were some of the conversations. Like, why you choose psychology?
Yeah.
Um, but knowing, what you've been through, your past experience, being able to be the servant,
Hmm.
working in the food bank now, even as your role model, your friend,
Yeah.
and now this transition, being in graduate school, wanting to take it even further because of the disparity that's already out there.
Right.
The fact that especially when in communities of color are not being provided the proper resources,
Hmm.
uh, that data that is actually collected is uh, not the right data, or
Yeah.
they're targeting the wrong areas. So I can only imagine, uh, and being even for yourself. Now we're talking about, now how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have a younger brother. He's 27 at the moment.
And even looking at that, a 27-year-old younger brother,
Hmm.
and wanting to do good, wanting to
Yeah.
set that example, wanting to pave that way, wanting to be the role model for him, still staying strong, still maintaining your
Yeah.
education, him knowing exactly what you've been through as a family, and able to maintain. So, what are the things that you're doing now? I mean, things that you're doing
Yeah.
now, but what are the things that you want to do as you finish your schooling? What are the things that you want to do?
Yeah. I love that question. This pursuit, working with Black folks, um, and wanting to, provide, it's got me thinking about wanting to be a father one day. In fact, the last several years, I've really desired to be a father who is involved. And this relates to, my dissertation topic, on the parental involvement and childhood trauma of Black fathers. And so, moving forward, I would like to be an involved father. I would like to open my own private practice working with Black families, working specifically with children, Black children, because I think that's something we need. As I think about the need in the community, I think about, the very few number of Black clinics in this country, the very few Black resources. It's so hard to find a clinic just for Black folks. It's so hard to find a hospital just for Black folks. And so I'm seeing that and wanting that for our community. Um, yeah, it's been driving me forward. It's been,
Yeah,
yeah,
and I can only say, and now because I think with my foundation, from a spiritual standpoint, being a father, but I can say being restored as a father. Uh,
yeah,
I had a son at a young age. Um, I was married and got divorced.
mm,
Uh, Felt the impact of that divorce on my children, even to this day, still rebuilding that.
yeah,
But initially, I was a good father.
mm,
I was at the games. I was very active. But when that transition of that divorce happened, then that has a whole mindset of its own.
yeah,
But I just remember trying to do the best that I could with no instructions.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Uh, and yet, one of the things that I found out, and being, whether it's military or my lived experience working in this
hmm,
as a mental health advocate, there's so many fathers that are in this position,
hmm,
and they talk about, even from a psychological standpoint, they talk about what does that forgiveness look like, to
yeah,
be able to forgive yourself for not being the dad that you wanted to be.
mm,
You know,
yeah,
how do you forgive yourself, and how do you go back to you know uh, to all the good men that's out there that's been the fathers, that's
yeah,
been there, but the ones that haven't, the ones that actually lost their families and had to go back and
yeah.
re establish that bond with their children. Is there any guidance that you could give us? You can give people that's listening, not
Yeah.
understanding that you're not a father,
Yeah.
but understanding how it feels to be without a father
Mm,
and going through a divorce. What advice could you give them, or even myself? And I say that from a personal standpoint.
yeah.
What advice could you give?
This is so good. Man, I wish we could lean on this because this is a great topic. I'm still doing the work doing the healing within myself on, um, not having a father who's involved in my life, even still as a grad student. Um, and so, I would say the work of a father it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop when, his child turns 18. It doesn't stop when, he goes off to college. And so father involvement is a constant thing. I think it looks different at different stages, but it's so important that a father is present physically and emotionally, because there's so much that is missed, when a father is absent. There's so much uniqueness that a father provides. Um, and if only fathers knew that their presence, both physically and emotionally, is unique. It allows people like myself to strive.
Wow. I
Yeah.
mean, you're talking like the people call me the OG, the Unc, but you sound like the OG and the Unc on that one, and I really appreciate you sharing that because I know, I mean, it's going to help me, but I know it'll help others as well.
Yeah.
So now that we kind of, we've been on this call, we talk about your past, we talk about what you're doing now, and uh, even going in the future, as we talked about it, and maybe having the ideal place, a clinic in
Hmm.
your area of choice. Where would that be?
Oh, I love it. I for a couple years now, I've desired to go to Africa. And I actually did an internship in South Africa a few years ago. And ever since I've desired to, as soon as I graduate, start a private practice in Africa. Um, you know, raise kids in Africa and start a whole life. That is my dream, is to be in Africa. It's a long journey. It's going to be a hard one, but I'm so excited to pursue that.
Wow, that I mean, I only got a couple podcasts under my belt, but for you to come on here and say your aspiration, and I'm talking to a young black man that says he has aspirations not only of having his own clinic, but the desire and the passion to have it in Africa and our
Yeah,
motherland.
yeah.
That's amazing, brother. I'm proud of you. If no one
Thank
else
you.
is, just to let you know, I'm proud and thank you for actually sharing that because it would definitely help somebody else. I know for a fact that it will.
Yeah.
So,
I appreciate that. And I think part of my journey is to connect with folks just like you on hearing your experiences as a father, talking about things like finances, talking about things like emotional healing, because these are the things that will, lead me to my goal in starting a private practice in Africa.
wow, that is amazing. So, hey, what we're going to do, I mean, I thank you for actually sharing that.
Yeah,
And we're almost done. But one thing before we go, well, two things before we go. One is we have a thing that I call the Let's Go Challenge. So the Let's Go Challenge is real simple. I'll say one word or two words,
cool.
and you just respond same thing, one word or two words. Well, you just respond what actually is on your heart and in your mind. You ready?
Let's go.
All right. Self care,
Ooh, healing,
education,
grad school,
mental health,
inner healing,
role model,
mm, Self-awareness.
Data.
Mm. Tools.
West Coast.
Family.
New York.
The heart.
Breakdancing.
Ooh, the culture.
And last but not least, you might like this one. Hip hop.
Ooh, the soul.
Well, Zach, hey, I appreciate you for participating in the Let's Go show. Another thing that we do before we close out, I always like to come back to the guests, whether words of wisdom or anything that's on your heart that you would like to tell our listening audience.
Mm, yes. I really hope this audience knows that, you know, your health is important. Um, you matter. Your health matters. Um, we can't do this alone. And, having a friend, a family member, to check in on you and to check in on your mental health, that's so important.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Doug Reed with Zachary Simon of the Let's Go show. One thing that you always hear me say, let's go, baby. Peace. We're
Peace.
out.